Welcome back to SPD 911. I am your host, Dr. Jake Taylor Jacobs, proud president and COO of SIPS Healthcare. And this show is all about tackling the toughest challenges in sterile processing. Whether you're on the front lines or making high level decisions, we're here to equip you with real solutions to rescue and elevate your department. Each episode, I'm joined by our director of clinical compliance, the Sharon Green Golden, a leader in compliance and regulatory standards and a GOAT of our industry of central sterile processing, and our director of clinical operations, Derek Jones, a specialist in operational efficiency and team development. DJ won't be here today, but he did send his wishes. So we're happy to just be with Sharon Green Golden today. Together, we break down the critical issues affecting CSPD departments and provide actionable strategies to help you stay ahead. SPD 911 isn't just a show, it's your emergency response team for sterile processing. We tackle compliance concerns, streamline operations, and help you grow as a leader in the field. If you want to participate live and ask your questions, join the Executive Edge community. It's free and the only way to engage with us directly. Every episode will break down compliance, operational issues with expert guidance because when it comes down to sterile processing, every decision matters. So join us live every week on Wednesdays at 12 p.m. Central Standard Time to catch the greatest Central Sterile Processing live show on planet Earth. How is it going, SGG?
It's going great here. It's like you asked me. It's a little gloomy. We got a lot of wind, but it's a new day.
It's a new day. So it is just now kind of clearing up where we are. We had a tornado warning the
Okay.
last yesterday. So we're kind of happy to kind of see the sun kind of shine again. The wind is blowing a little hard. So we all right. As long as it's not freezing, I think I'm all right.
That's good. I know that's right.
So SGG, last week we had a banger. It was a really great conversation, and we want to continue that conversation today on the show, especially when we talked about that mental health piece, and that's the last thing we talked about
Mhm.
was the mental health on the last show, and the scenario was that high pressure, low recognition nature of SPD creates extreme burnout and anxiety. And I know that you wanted to kind of touch base on it just a little bit more, or when we were ending the show, I know mental health was a big thing for you. Was there anything else before we start the segment today and go into some other topics? Were there anything else about mental health that you would like for people to, pay attention to?
I think that it's important in our departments that we pay attention to our team members. Uh,
Mm,
I think that we have to take into consideration that with the struggles of today's lifestyles, um, having to work a lot of them more than one job, that
mhm.
we have to be fully aware that how they think, how they're feeling mentally, be considered and taken care of. You may have to offer a mental health day to somebody. You may have to offer a mental health week if they really are having some problems. But being cognizant of the fact that in today's world, especially here in America, uh,
Mm,
how we feel mentally is important. And not to kick it under the rug, not to act like it does not exist because it does. And people are hurting. So they come to work and they're hurting mentally. They
yeah,
have problems.
yeah.
And being able to uh, see that, and that was my reason for taking the mental health first aid course, was being able to see that and being willing to, as I said last week, not diagnose anybody's problem. I really don't want to know the problem, but I want you to know that I care and I'm aware and I'm willing to help you seek the necessary help that you need in order to be able to function. Because understand, Dr. Jake, if I'm not functioning mentally,
Yeah,
I'm not doing a good job.
that's good.
My mental status is warped, that does influence and affect the product that I'm putting out daily. And we deal with patients' lives unseen. And sometimes a contaminated tray could actually get into a surgical case and be used. That's the scary part of what we do. It could be used on a patient, and that patient could have bad effects later that nobody even puts together with what we've done. So I need for my people to be in the now when they're at work, in the now today, not in my issues at home, not in, I'm just so mentally ill that I'm sick. I need to be able to depend on them to put out a good product. And that product just happens to be that we put out trays that have met the parameters of sterilization, and we can feel sure that if it goes into that surgical case, the patient will not have a bad effect because of something we did. So, how I feel mentally is important. And when you have someone that comes every day and you know how they are, you know that Golden comes in, she's smiling, she's happy. And for the last month, she doesn't even smile. You have got to step out as a leader and reach out. You can't make me do anything. But when you reach out to people and they know that you care, they act better.
Mm. Let me ask you this question, SGG, because I think you've mentioned this several times before, but I don't think that we spent a lot of time and heavy emphasis on the importance of this. You as a leader, seeking more help
Mhm.
outside of what you've been given, certification trainings, the all the things to give you the qualifications to be in central sterile processing or even run a department. You got all of those certifications, right?
Mhm.
But you saying that took the extra step to
Mhm.
get that mental health, go through that mental health course so that you knew how to be able to guide and provide support to your team. What transpired that made you say, you know what, I need another level of training or development to better support these people that I'm leading?
I was dealing with employees, Dr. Jake, that I watched change before my eyes.
Mm.
COVID came in, um, it rocked the world, but it rocked our departments. We were being asked to do things that technically were not in the rule book. They were not in best practice standards. I had to do research to find out if that was going to be good. I had to always
Right.
spend time with the C-suite. But what I found was that my team members were not faring well. Now, the first few weeks of COVID, we were okay. But by 2021, in the middle of 2021 into 2022, I
Hmm.
saw people who had changed. Uh, their change was not a little change; it was a big change, and I didn't know what to do. Coming in and saying, "Hey, Dr. Jake, how you feeling?" And this is your answer. I'm fine.
Yeah.
Okay, we go tomorrow. I come in. Hey, Dr. Jake, how you doing? You look, your eyes cross the day to me.
Yeah.
You say, "I'm fine."
I'm fine. That's right.
And then hearing things that happened in other hospitals, the hospital down in Alabama where the man came in and shot the people in the hospital and
Right.
things going on, I said that I'm fine is not a good answer.
That's right.
And so I worked for a group where they encourage us to seek out better ways to do things. And if you find a way, they will support you. And a
Mm.
course showed up on my computer called Mental Health Awareness. And it was a course you had to take over several weeks, several hours. And I said, maybe I need to take the course. It's not a course that makes me a mental health trainer or anything, but
Right.
what it does is it opens my eyes to see that, yes, something is
Yeah.
wrong with Dr.
Something's
Jake.
wrong. Right.
Something's wrong. And his saying he's fine is not the answer. That's
Yeah,
not helping him, and it's not helping you, and it's not helping the team, because as Dr. Jake is having problems, guess what? So is Mary Lou over there.
that's right.
So now Mary Lou's having a problem, Dr. Jake's having a problem, and you have a department that is imploding on itself. We're a small department and we're imploding on ourselves. They began to nitpick at each other more than normal. And so I started with one person. And I mean, I asked around. I didn't just jump in, Dr. Jake. I said, hey, did Dr. Jake look like he just not himself? People will be honest. They'd be like,
Yeah,
he used to would come in and tell me about his children. He don't say
right,
nothing anymore. And
right.
I took the course, and what it did was it allows you to be a first aider, meaning you get to see, so you feel like someone isn't doing well mentally, not physically, mentally something's off. You get to offer them these choices. You get to bring them in and select them and say, hey, Dr. Jake, I know you don't want me in your business. That's okay. But I can see you're not yourself.
Mm-hmm.
What can I do to help you? Because I didn't want anybody coming to my department with their weapon. I didn't want anybody coming into the department gonna kill us all. I'm just saying, I'm just being real. And I felt that I had people who were on the edge. Their rope was very, very tight. And the
Mm.
first employee that I sent out, when she finally got herself together, she came back and said, thank you so much. She said, you just don't know. Because they don't want to tell you, because they feel like, number one, you're going to tell their business.
Mm.
You're going to tell their business to everybody. So you don't want to share with me. Number two, I might try to get you out of your job.
That's true.
We human beings. I might, what you tell me may influence me, that I'm going to human resources saying Dr. J don't need to be here no more, because
Right.
he's got problems. So people are very secretive about their inner lives when they have mental problems, especially because you don't know what the outcome's going to be.
Right. And
And
it
as
reminds me
yes,
of creating. um I talked about this on episode of Bread to Lead, psychological safety or
mm-hmm,
psychologically safe environment. So it sounds like you were focused more so on proactively ensuring that your team members didn't um you know uh disintegrate right in front of you. Like
yes,
you
yes,
were you were seeing them almost losing themselves,
yes,
personality, characteristics, their routines, and they're becoming almost a total different person. So
yes,
you as a leader are saying, "Hey, I know I'm not equipped enough
mm-hmm,
to handle this here. So let me
right,
find more resources so I can be a better resource to our team." And I think that says a lot, about your leadership, but it also says a lot about what we would consider a SIPS leader, somebody who is proactive in our approach of leadership and not reactive.
right,
And I did want us to touch on that before we moved on, because it kind of it kind of rolls right into this concept of being proactive. It's not just in the healthcare where leaders aren't naturally proactive.
mm-hmm,
You see a
right,
lot of people um, take the approach of leadership or positional leadership because of their own career pathway or accolades that they want to accomplish. So in their mind, when they started that career, they said, I'm gonna be a manager, I'm gonna be a
mm-hmm,
director, I'm gonna be a VP one day. And we never really take into account the true responsibilities of every position, and the levels of mastery of certain skill sets that we must master. And a lot of people miss this one skill, and it's called proactive.
mm, yes,
Learning how to be proactive, which takes me to this scenario where we're talking about the real cost of silent failure. So here's the scenario, SGG.
mm-hmm,
Unlike the OR or ICU, where mistakes are immediately visible, SPD failures are silent, but just as deadly. A contaminated instrument, an improperly sterilized scope, a missing implant might not cause an immediate catastrophe, but weeks later a patient dies from an infection. The question is, Why do hospitals tolerate reactive patient safety instead of proactive SPD improvements? And why are SPD leaders only called in after a lawsuit has been filed instead of being a part of hospital-wide preventative strategies? And I remember the last episode you talked about being buddy to buddy with infection control. What are some other things that and somebody in sterile processing can do to not be a part of this?
We have to first realize that sometimes the adage, the thought process that's out there that says the squeaky wheel gets the oil is important for this department. We're not always the squeaky wheel. And so hospitals have had SPDs since the beginning of hospitals in some way, shape, or form.
That's right.
And for years, they didn't, and still yet today, but for years, they didn't even know what we did. So they had no idea the importance of the product that was being produced in this little area,
right,
put away in the basement.
Right.
So whatever happened, it never actually pointed its fingers back to SPD. That's one thing. The second thing is that I have often asked when things went wrong, why are we reactive? I've been over here waving the white flag for 3 weeks, saying the sink don't work, the sink don't work, sink don't work. And nobody wanted to really pay attention to me because one of the other sinks did work and they were going to get around to it. I think that they have to understand that when we come to, and for us, following the chain of command, for us is for me to first go to whoever my direct leader is.
That's right.
And coexist with infection control and say, this is the issue. I'm going to tell you the issue now. It's about being willing to be vocal. Does that make sense?
Yep.
SPD managers have not always been willing to be vocal. We were happy if I'm quiet, you don't bother me, I don't bother you.
Got it.
Right? And life goes on because the patient doesn't even know I exist. So why am I shaking the tree?
Right.
It's only when we decided to become professional in this field and we started learning more and thankfully having classes and people like you who are teaching us how to be leaders, that it came to the forefront that you can speak up respectfully and let somebody know there's a problem. You can be on the record. And it's not good to not be on the record. So if I'm on the record and you don't be proactive and help me when the problem comes in and you're reactive, I'm able to step back and pull the records and say, wait a minute, Dr. Jake, we got 25 emails where I told you since January that my camera don't work. And here's some of your answers was, okay. So now that you can't see me on the camera at all, you want to ask me what happened. It's a little late. It's a little late. Because if you get a manager, or I consider myself a leader, if you get a leader like me, I'm going to say, oh no, sir. I got some proof.
That's right.
And I told you. And
that's right.
I am vocal, not about the department as such, but the fact that what I do matters every day to every patient.
That's right.
My team members fix a tray for.
That's right.
And I don't want anyone to have a bad effect, including me. I've been the patient. So what has happened in the past, it is getting better, but the wheels of success move slow in some areas, especially when it costs money. Yeah. The other thing is they're not proactive in SPD because usually what we need gonna cost some money. I need some more people, that's some money. I need a new piece of equipment. None of our equipment costs $2. Add some tissue for us upon a good day, $7. So I need 35 of those. So the bottom line is it costs money. And when things cost money in America, people step back and decide how important it really is.
Mm.
And it's just that you can do that at your house. You can say it's not important for us to have steak in the refrigerator because steak costs too much. But when it comes to a patient's life, you have to weigh and balance. Do we really need this to function? It's my job as the manager to come with the information, with the facts, with the research and say, this is what we need to do this job. And we really need it. We're doing the best we can without it. But this is what's going to happen. So when you start listing what the fallout will be, eventually, with the help for us with infection control, they have a tendency to listen better. But when you're unseen and when they really don't think what you do matters, then they don't call you until the building is burning. The building's completely burning. Then they say, wait a minute, I think they got water down there in the SPD, or they were supposed to have the water. Let's go find out what had happened. And now you want me to come and explain why a patient could have gotten an infection. It's also my job, Dr. Jake, to be able to have the information available to say,
yeah,
patient got an infection, having a knee replaced. What are they growing? What day was it? Let me pull the records and see what trays we sterilized. Let us see if the parameters were actually met that day for those trays. Let me see if the finger that's pointing this way truly should be pointing this way. Because we have to fix things in order to not have them happen again. Right. So I want to say on the record, all hospitals do not wait until the lawsuit is technically filed. Some of them have meetings. Infection control, number one, does their research and their investigation. The first thing they did at the hospitals that I worked with, because I sat on the infection control committee, was called SPD. We had a surgical site infection. They got that notice. They get a notice. Dr. Jenkins says we got an infection. Patient James went home. Now we got to bring them back and do an IND, which is, incision and drainage of their site. Call down the SPD, tell them the information, what day the surgery was, and let them do the research and pull the information for us for those trays that were used on that patient. Then they have what you will hear me call all the time, a sentinel event meeting, where they bring all the players into the room and we sit around and everybody has to explain their part. And that's where we discuss what could have happened, because you really don't know.
Right.
When it comes to infections, you really don't know unless you knew that you used a dirty tray.
Mm-hmm.
So it's all speculation. It's circumstantial evidence. And so now we come together and we sit there and we say, what did you do? What did your department do? So for the hospitals that do that, I say kudos, because we're part of the team and we should be at the meeting. They should not assume the patient got an infection, it was due to SPD. They should not assume that. But by the same token, they should be willing to do the research and the investigation to determine what happened so that we can fix it. If it was SPD, if it was OR, we can fix it so that our next customer, our next patient does not have a bad outcome. So I think that to SPD managers, those that are already directors and leaders, you have to know, you have to be willing to speak up. You have to be willing to do the investigation. You have to have the information there for the investigation. You have to sit on the committees so that you can have input before there's what I call a sentinel event, before patient Jones gets an infection.
Yeah. I like that theory. I actually got a couple of ways that we can go with it.
Okay.
Just as far as added value, but what it brings me to, SGG, is understanding that we live in a world where nearly 90+%, which is a made up percentage, but around 90+% people, I believe, personally are reactive in nature.
Mm.
We're reactive with our health. We're
Hmm.
reactive with our finances. We're reactive in our love life.
Mm.
We're reactive in intimacy. We're reactive in empathy. We're reactive in grace given. We're reactive in providing someone the benefit of the doubt, where we typically only give benefit of the doubt if it was given to us first. We're
Oh,
reactive of trust. There's so many things that we're reactive of at nature, that to imagine that in my workplace now everyone's going to be proactive is unrealistic for anyone to
yes.
think,
Yes.
unless the culture is deliberately changed. And you cannot be proactive changing a culture until you put it in your system, until you systematize proactiveness. It will never be a part of your culture long standing.
Hmm.
And we'll talk about that here in a second. But when we talk about the theory of being proactive, that's why even our technology, Sterile Matrix AI SGG, when we're talking about the true nature of it, our software is more than a tracking software. It is a
Hmm.
compliance and regulatory
Yes.
instrument tracking software, which means in embedded in our technology, it forces you to think about every step that you take.
Yes.
Now, now now, if I'm thinking this, right, and this is a part of the system, I
Hmm.
can't help but to, see when the signal pop up, are you sure that this goes here? I have to
Right.
relook, click yes. Then I
Yes.
have to go. Then when it comes to indicator, I have to put in the indicate
Mhm.
code. Like I got to do everything in
Right.
phases. And so what I've seen in organizations is that even such, you may find somebody that meets a SGG and says, I need to be proactive. I need to be proactive. How do I do it? Well, you can go and yell to the mountaintops, but until you find a way as a leader to make sure that you build a proactive model or proactive habits within your organization, you won't see it. So at what step are we making people sign off? At what step are we cross-checking? Does every phase have a quality text, quality assurance text? Where are your QA texts? Where are your QA texts? And
Yeah.
then where's your intake QA when it comes to decon? There's a lot of people that if they just had a person in a FTE there to be able to process what's coming from OR to
Hmm.
decon. If we
Hmm.
just had somebody there, that may stop a lot of things from happening, or sayings of instrument wasn't good or this wasn't
Right.
there. If we have a check and balance coming in and going out, there are so many things that if we build in our system, it will allow for us being proactive to just be a part of our workflow. But what I see is that most departments are focused on throughput. How many instruments or materials can go in and out of system? And how
Hmm.
productive can we be with it going in and out of system? That's the only thing that matters, which only makes us focus on the throughput. How many are
Hmm.
going in? How many is going out? How many is going in? And how many is going out? That isn't a model that will force senior leadership to say, you know what? Let's look at the true value of SPD. If we're only calculating SPD by throughput, materials and instruments coming in, materials and instruments going out, it's hard to turn on the switch to get somebody else to believe that there's a higher value that needs to be put on being proactive when it comes to patient care. Now, you understand that, SGG, but those that are upstairs, if they learn SPD from a throughput model, it's kind of hard for them to switch it. And so, which takes me to this question: what did you do to get your C-suite to stop looking at your departments as a throughput model? Instruments in, instruments and materials out. That's productivity. What did you do to get them to start seeing how closely tied to patient safety and how closely tied to profitability SPD truly is, to make them want to listen to some of the recommendations that you had?
Um, Early on, once I got into leadership status, one of the things I did was started to lay the groundwork within the hierarchy of the hospital as to who we were. Do you know, we'd have meetings, and if I got invited to the table, that's the key there. Invited to the table, I didn't just go to the table and sit quietly. I laid the groundwork for Dr. Jake. Have you ever been to sterile processing? I'm Miss Golden from sterile processing. Yeah. I know. Have you ever been to sterile processing? Do you have any idea, other than we're doing instruments, what we're really doing? Effectively and respectfully, I at hospitals, because I understand for years, I've been doing this for 30 or more years. For years, we were not on the infection control committee at all. It was only after some studies and going to some meetings and learning that I should be talking to infection control that I went and said, hello, infection control, I'm Miss Golden down in sterile processing. Have you been to sterile processing? Do you know what we're doing? I'm giving you a report every month that I can make it say what I want it to say. Do you know if I'm telling you the truth?
So creating awareness before asking was a big thing for you. Okay.
Yes. And I call that laying the groundwork for what's going on. I had a scenario at a hospital that eventually was bought and built brand new somewhere else, where we didn't have a cart washer to wash the carts. And we were literally washing them by hand. And you'd have to wash it, the whole cart, and then you have to dry it, Dr. Jake. Drying required that you be on your knees to dry the inside of a cart. So, most of our people in the SPD are women. And we didn't understand, I didn't understand why am I on my knees every day, bending into a cart to dry it. And we had asked, it was on the budget. They were going to get a cart washer one day, kind of like Jesus is coming back. And so we were sitting there waiting for the crack in the sky. It didn't happen. And I had 2 employees that became pregnant.
And couldn't get on their knees.
They can't get down on their knees.
That's right.
In the cart. So I waited, talking about laying the groundwork. SPD week came up, which they really didn't celebrate, but we celebrated. And I asked the hospital C-suite, could we celebrate and could we do a program called Walk a Mile in My Shoes?
Oh, okay.
They were like, okay, just for 1 week. They were like, okay. So we set up stations for people to come in, get dressed out, come through SPD. But I went to the vice president who was over SPD and said, would you come walk a mile today in the cart section? And he was like, okay. He was a young man. Okay. Kind of like you, Dr. J. Okay. So he bopped on down there and put on his little outfit, and we let him wash the cart. Wash the cart was not necessarily the hard part. So after he washed the cart, we said, now after we wash it and we tilt it and we let the water drain out, then we roll it to this section and you have to physically dry it. He was like, okay. So he was drying the cart, wiping it down. And what we would do, what I did, is he'd wipe it down. He said, okay, this cart's dry. And I'd walk by and hit the top of it. Bam.
And all the water
would come out of corners. And he'd have to get back down and dry it again. And I walked by, I said, that one ready, sir? He said, yes, it's ready. I hit it again. Bam. And water So about the 3rd time, he looked at me and said, what is going on? I said, well, sir, because water holds in these corners, we really can't dry it. And we're down here on our knees. You're on your knees, sir. We're down on our knees all day. You're doing 35, 40 cases a day. We need a cart washer, sir. We can't take it. We all getting ready to go to workman's comp, and my back hurt because I help, and I got 2 pregnant ladies. They no longer, so it's only 5 of us doing carts. Can you help us, please? Can you help us? I know it's in the budget, sir. It's been in the budget for about 7 years. Can you all help us? And when he got finished, now I will tell you, young man, he's gone a long way and is a leader in hospitals, but he helped us all day. He didn't leave. He stayed. But I want you
Wow.
to know something. When he left that day, I want you to
he
know
he got some understanding, didn't he?
that when the budget came around at the end of the year, we had a cart washer. We had a cart washer.
That's
And to
right.
this day, people will say, Miss Golden, how did y'all get the cart washer? Because I was trying to get it. Listen, you have to learn to deal with people where they are if they're willing to hear.
Okay. Okay.
If they're willing
Okay.
to hear.
So it looked to me one. There's a couple of lessons that there's a couple of lessons. Um, there's a couple of lessons that I pulled from here,
Mm-hmm.
and I hope you all that are listening are catching the nuggets. She said the first thing she mentioned was in order to create this change from a space that you're in. She said the first thing that she focuses on through her conversation was awareness.
Mm-hmm.
Right? She wants to create
Yes.
awareness before the ask. And a lot of people make the mistake of asking before gaining awareness.
Mm-hmm.
And this takes me to, and I'm going to make the a business comparison in a second. So she made someone aware before the ask. Now, after making everyone aware before the ask, then she identified who she could bring to her department and ask herself so that she can educate through demonstration. So she identified who her target audience was. And her target wasn't everybody, it
Right.
was the VP
Yes.
of SPD, VP of Surgical Services. She knew
Yes.
if I can get this VP to understand my pain, I don't have to say anything else because they're going to advocate on behalf of me. They're going to go get the
That's
money,
right.
right? And then the third thing she did was the first thing was awareness. The second thing she found who her target audience was. She found her audience. Who do I need to speak to regularly? And then the third thing she did, in case you guys didn't see it, she educated through demonstration.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, and a lot of times what leaders do when trying to create change, we educate by talking.
Yes.
And if you understand most people's learning style, there's not too many people that can take the information that you give them, never being in your seats, your foot, your shoes before, or in your position, and completely understand your pain, your point, your perspective in that
Yes.
moment. Most people have to walk a mile in your shoes. So what she
Yes.
did was she created awareness. She found the audience that she wanted. She created a product by way, walk a mile in my shoes, that she could now start a campaign to get people to see what her problems were through demonstration. And through that, she created change that happened later on down the road when the budget opened up. There's a
Yes.
few things, there's so many nuggets to take from here, SGG, because on the business side, that's exactly what we would tell somebody. We
Mm-hmm.
would tell them before you ask for someone to purchase something from you, create awareness.
Right.
They need awareness on what they're missing. They need awareness on whatever they're using isn't working anymore. We need awareness on, so when you see commercials and campaigns from businesses
Mm-hmm.
that attract you, it's always a campaign to highlight something that you may not be aware that you're missing. And it
Right.
makes you say, dang, I didn't
Mm-hmm.
notice that. You know what? I haven't been down to SPD. You know what? I am running this entire Periop a service line, and I've never once even stepped foot in one
That's
of the
right.
departments that I'm in. That awareness makes them say, Then she didn't leave it to chance. She identified who she really wanted to really make aware and to ask after the demonstration. So what we say in business, hey, listen, once you create awareness, you identify who you should be selling your product to. But you
Yes.
had to create a product. So you said, hey, walk a mile in my shoes is my product.
Mm-hmm.
If I can
Yes.
get you to buy into this walk a mile in my shoes product, I can eventually get to ask you what I need. So seeing your flow,
Mm-hmm.
how you took everyone through it, and then the way that you asked allowed for the VP to have in his head is his idea.
Yes.
Oh yeah, you need a car. So SGG said, you know what? She hit the thing. We just need a car washer. I don't know what to do. So then she allowed the VP to have the hero effect. And this is a couple of things that I've learned. There's a lot of leaders that make it in healthcare or anywhere that once they hit an executive role, they want the credit. They want to find all the things that make it great. Why? Because in their eyes, they've already done all the grunt work. They submitted all their stuff. Everyone already took credit for what they've done. So now it's their turn. So what you did was absolutely genius. And if any of you did not get those nuggets, I am sorry. She literally walked down exactly how to get attention to the things that you need without petitioning, without lobbying, without yelling, without crying. Just a simple, easy way. Create the awareness, find your audience, create a campaign that makes everyone pay attention to what you have going on. And then you educate through demonstration. And then after the demonstration, you allow them to believe they came up with the solution that you impart into their head that you needed. Oh my God.
And you know, Dr. Jake, what you're saying is so true. I never looked at it that way, but it didn't matter to me who bought the cot washer, whose idea it was. Just get me a cot washer. And so I learned at that point, Dr. Jake, that my job, part of my job as a manager, is to manage the people, manage the processes, and to make the people who are over me look good by any means necessary.
That's right. That's right.
Okay, because when he got the cart washer and the team was happy and the OR was happy because they wasn't getting carts up there sometimes with water inside dripping on something, everybody won. And that particular hospital started, we actually started every year for everybody's week, they did a walk a mile in my shoe. It's like, what you mean you need to walk a mile in your shoe in the lab? They're like, we need you to come see what we're doing in the lab. We need you to come see what we're doing in materials management.
That's right.
So everybody decided, you know what? This is a good thing to do. Because as you say, Dr. J, I didn't have to sit there and yell nothing. All I did was hit the cart every time he thought he was finished and say, you still got water, sir?
You still got water, sir.
You know. And then when we did sit down and talk, I said, that's why you hear the OR saying that they get carts upstairs that are wet. And he understood.
Right there. Now you connected it to him. Now you connected. That's right. Because you cannot connect until they get context.
You know, and listen, this is and what it does to you all who are managers and directors is, as Dr. Jake says, you learn as you go, as you get knowledge, you grow. What happened was I learned that they had what is called an emergency fund in the hospital. That when things get really, 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 really tight, they can get whatever they want because they have that contingency plan, that fund back there. And so even though it had been in the budget year after year after year, and nobody thought it was important, when he went back upstairs to the C-suite members that he was a part of and said, listen, I've been down in SPD all day long on my knees trying to drive
myself. That's right. That's right.
And I can't drive. And I'm intelligent. I got 5 degrees. I got all of this. And the cart was still wet. Every time Miss Green Golden came by and hit it, some more water fell out. So what they're saying is, number one, relevant.
That's right.
They need a cart washer. And let's see what we can do to get one. Because we need for them to be able to focus, not so much on their knees drying carts, but if they're on their knees drying carts all day, they're not putting trays together. So now we understand why the other problem is there. They say the SPD can't get all the trays done. That's because we down on our knees drying the cart to put the process tray in later.
That's right.
So it works. And it wasn't that, like you said, it wasn't me being mean, being brash. It wasn't me being, for lack of terms, angry Black woman, because I was Black in that situation. It was me just saying, I just want you to see what I'm doing and why, bam, on the cart, I think we need a cart washer. You know, I could be wrong, sir. I could be wrong.
And I think it's beautiful because even if we break down humanity, when you pull back the layers of
Mm-hmm.
someone's life, it truly makes you look at them not by their color, not by their demographic, not by their religion, not by their culture. It makes you look at when I'm embraced in somebody's real reality and
Mm-hmm.
I'm forced to have to live like them in that moment or act like them or work like them. It
Mm-hmm.
brings about a space of humility. And if I were to say, um, the organizations that get it right, their leaders have a clear pulse on humbleness and humility and empathy for every human being that's in that organization.
Yes. Yes.
They hurt when you hurt. Now
Yes.
they may can't get the funding or they may can't give you the raise, but they
Mm-hmm.
1000% understand your disposition. And then
Yes.
in the organizations that struggle, those organizations, you typically have leaders who lack empathy and true understanding of people's position. Oddly, because a lot of them were never in any of those positions.
Mm-hmm.
So they don't have a connecting point.
Mm-hmm.
Or two, if they were, they were in a total different situation that doesn't allow for them to see yours because they may have been brought up right, or they were
Mm-hmm.
trained in a great facility, or they had
Mm-hmm.
all the top equipment. But when you find those leaders that
Mm-hmm.
literally had nothing and came
Yes.
up like they came from gas chambers down there in SPD, okay, those are typically the leaders. They may be tough, but they have a lot of empathy when it comes to what you're dealing with and what you're going through because they've been there before. It brings me to this. SGG, I hear you. I do. I do. But my manager doesn't think like this.
Mm-hmm.
I'm a supervisor. I'm a supervisor. My manager doesn't think like this. What can I do? I'm not in a position where I can create real change because I'm leading a shift, but my manager sits on their hands and complains, but nothing happens. What should I do?
Uh, when it comes to when you understand who you work for, which is the patient, when you understand the assignment, then it is your I use this big word, Dr. J, your fiduciary responsibility to get it right by any means necessary. So you got a manager that don't care. I have some people say my manager stay in the office all day. They don't even come out and see what we're doing. Okay, well, what are you doing? Well, I'm doing things not necessarily correct, and I know it. And I've tried to talk to them, and they don't have their listening ears on. They have their ears on where they hear, but not hear to listen. They hear to respond. Therefore, they really don't hear me. Then you have to do your due diligence within what you have control over. Understand, I can only control what I can control. And we said it last week. If you're doing something that is totally wrong, that can harm somebody, you cannot sit back and act like you don't see. So there's at hospitals, I'm going to say at all hospitals, there's a 1-800 compliance number. You have got to be willing to report. Now, this is a little different than whistle blowing. You have to be willing to report, but you only report, Dr. J, when you followed the chain
All
of
of the
command.
protocol. Yep.
So there's a chain of command. The chain of command for me, if I remember correctly, at that particular hospital was um, the manager, that's me. Then it was the director. Then from the director, it was the VP. There's a branch off of director to infection control. So you could go to infection control. There's a branch off of that that says surgical operating center, which is the meeting where you go every month and sit with all the physicians, all the players for periop sit together, where you can come in and they actually ask questions. What is going on? Now you have to decide respectfully and tactfully how you're going to say, do you all realize that we're washing instruments with no soap? You cast that line following the chain of command. Now, I already told the director we don't have no soap. Director say he looking for it. We're trying to do the best we can. We're borrowing soap because understand something, Dr. Jake. In SPD, people will try to get it done. So as the manager, I have called over to Hospital B and borrowed some soap, some cleaning agent. Let me say cleaning agent. I borrowed cleaning agent, and we're doing the best we can, but we need to get some of our own and repay people. What do? I can't sit there and wait till we are completely out of cleaning agent.
That's right.
So I've got to go tell somebody, and somebody that can do something. So I went to my director. Director looked at me and said, I don't know what we gonna do. We went to materials management. They trying to procure some, but somebody's got to be willing to go the next step up. And what happens is people are fearful of leadership. I don't want to be the one that told the vice president. And the director doesn't want me to be the one that told the vice president, because that's what they should have done. So now I've got to sit back and with reverse psychology, help that director understand between he and I or she and I, that we as a team, I'm going because I have done the investigation and I have the facts. And he or she is going because they're running that area. And we're going to the VP to say, listen, we cannot function next week without any cleaning agent. And we don't have any. And Hospital B isn't loaning us anymore because they've already loaned us, sir or ma'am, as much as they can. And we want to be on the record. And now the ball is in your court.
Right.
And I'm leaving the meeting, going back to SPD, trying to do the best I can. Because the one thing I consistently say to anybody that I'm dealing with about anything in SPD is that we work for the patient. If we don't have patients in hospitals, we don't make money. And so if the patients don't come because they got word of mouth that we're not doing things right, they're not going to come. And in this day and age with social media, all I got to do is get a friend to get on social media and say, they killing people over at Joe Blow's hospital.
Yep.
Pass it on. And eventually it gets out. Here where I live now, they have something called Wavy TV 10 on your side. You call to put a little note into them and say, I think they're killing people at Joe Blow's hospital. They're not washing the instruments with cleaning agent. You know what that TV station does? They do some investigation, do some research, and next thing you know, they coming out to see what had happened. No hospital wants to be in the news for that. So when you make people, and you say it very plainly within your leadership teachings, you've got to let people know what they don't know. And you have to be sure that you made them aware of what they didn't know. Right. Because they will say, I didn't know.
Yep. And not knowing doesn't absolve you from the law. And a lot of people,
ignorance is not a defense.
That's right. And a lot of people believe that ignorance is a defense. Like if you stay ignorant, that you're able to absolve yourself. And the truth is, no, it doesn't. It doesn't work. Willful ignorance is actually the worst kind of ignorance, where there's a problem, but you're choosing not to go down there to do it. And so there are a lot of leaders, SGG, that are uncomfortable with coming down there, or they're uncomfortable with having certain conversations because they know that they don't know SPD.
Right.
They know they don't know the language. And so they'll keep their doors shut or won't even communicate or act extremely busy. But these are the things that create what they call the proverbial red tape. It's red tape to red people that are unknown, unsure, or scared to bring up something that they don't know, that they're unsure and scared about, to bring up something that they don't know, unsure and scared about, to leadership, because they're technically supposed to know, because we put you in that position. So you're supposed to know. And so when it comes to that, what I always am a believer of, transparency is the highest form of accountability. If in the organization, I can't be in an organization where we can hold ourselves to be transparent, I'm not going to diminish my integrity in my profession that I believe in for anybody that doesn't want to be transparent about the problems that we're currently having within our organization. And
Yes.
and with that, what I would say is you actually said something that's a beautiful gem. And I promise you, it's probably worked more than 85% of the time that in turning around organizations, when we start to get people to see like this, it changes a lot of things. One, a lot of people don't take into account how scared your upline actually is.
Mm.
Two, a lot of people don't take into account what personal problems your upline may be dealing with, that they're scared to say something because if they lose their job, their
Mhm.
family doesn't have any income.
Mm.
Their child needs benefits because they have a child that you don't know about that has an ailment. So
Mhm.
they can't afford to speak up too much or cause any stir or any problems without all of the facts or without knowing that you have their back. So here it
Mhm.
takes me to number 3, which is why what SGG said was absolutely gold. Gold. You have to be the type of partner that is okay with your upline winning on behalf of your efforts. It's called
Mhm.
a team.
Yes.
When you're in an organization that you're participating in, it is you're a part of a team. No
Mhm.
different than if you want to say, hey, I'm going to go start my own company. I'm gonna do
Mhm.
my own thing. Everyone in your organization that you start, guess who gets the credit? You're going to be the one on Forbes, aren't you? You're going to
Yes.
be the one on Entrepreneur Magazine. They're going to
Yes.
call you the greatest entrepreneur that ever existed if your company does amazing, right?
Right.
That means that what? You get the credit for what your team is doing. So the same thing happens within organizations. You have to be so committed at the right thing getting done for the patients that you don't care about your name being told in a newspaper.
Mhm.
You have
Mhm.
to. Why? Because we all pay our dues on the journey to leadership.
Right.
Everybody does. And
Right.
it doesn't take away from your case study that you can use. It doesn't take away from the fact that you can have a receipt of the trail of communication that you have
Mhm.
with your upline to be able to prove that you were a part of that change at that facility. It doesn't take away from the experience that you can pull away of when you saw something, how you acted on it so that you can teach it. All it does is it allows for the leader, whoever's leading that ship at the time, for them to get what's rightfully theirs. Inside of their organization that they were leading, there was a change, a problem that was found, a solution that is given, a change that was made for the better, and they can get the credit for it. And then internally, whether they give you the credit or not, you should be proud that the result got done for the patient to be a lot more healthier and for your team to benefit the most. Why? Because the people that you're in the trenches with every day won't forget it was you.
Right. I told the director, several directors over the years, but I remember going into the office with one with the door shut. And I said to this director, I said, listen, I said, I know that you really don't know what we got going on in SPD. And sometimes I say things and you look at me like, what is she talking about?
That's right.
I said, understand this. I'm willing to share with you any knowledge I have so that you can be aware, so that you have the verbiage you need to fight the battle. And understand this, I got your back. And if I have your back, you look good,
Come on.
we look good.
Come on. Come on.
So when
And
you
what
look
and what did
good,
that director do?
she smiled and she was like,
Yeah, come
okay.
on.
She's
Okay,
like,
let's go.
okay. Because she knew one thing. If Green Golden said, we need a boroscope, Green Golden's done the research.
Yep.
Green Golden's got the facts.
Yep.
Green Golden has got some information.
Yep.
And if we have to go to a court, Green Golden will be there with everything you need to send
Everything you
the case.
need to make
So
sure
I
that
can stand up here
that's
at this
right.
meeting and say, please let us get a boroscope
Yeah.
because Green Golden said it. Now, I want to say to managers out there, this didn't happen to me overnight.
Talk
Dr.
about it.
Dr. Jake teaches leading concepts and how to lead. I had to learn. I didn't have a Dr. Jake. I had to learn this falling and we fall down and we get up. We fall down and we get up. So I did a lot of falling over 40 years
Yeah,
of
yeah.
leading and learning. And I learned from my mistakes. Now, a good leader learns from their mistakes. I don't have to take the class twice. I only, I try to make an A the first time, But if I don't, I'm only going to take it one more time and I'm
That's
going to
right.
pass. So the
That's right.
bottom line is I had to learn from mistakes. I want you all to know what you see now of SGG was not the SGG from 1982.
That's good.
This is the SGG now that has been up many mountains and fallen back down. But I was willing to take those experiences and turn them into positivity in how to lead people and how to help my profession. And I'm just saying, you have to be willing to go out on the limb.
Yep.
Dr. Jake asked me about that mental health class. I took that on my own. Nobody told me to take it. Nobody advised me to take it. I decided for my people as a manager, they would benefit from having a manager that wasn't just coming around telling me, how you doing, Dr. Jake? And when you say fine, keep moving. When the director said, Miss Golden, how things in SPD, and your answer is always fine. You know it's not fine.
That's right.
But you don't want to rock the boat. So it's being able to rock the boat, but don't tip it over.
That's right.
It's okay for the boat to rock. Boats were meant to rock.
That's right.
But they weren't meant to technically go over. So I've learned how to rock the boat respectfully. And I will say that always respectfully and with integrity. And I've always made everybody aware. I have what I consider great integrity, and it will not be compromised. So I'm willing to tell you 1 and 1 is 2. And if you don't want to go with it, okay. But I'm also willing to tell the world I told you 1 and 1 was 2.
And that's just the truth. Just the truth. And so I before we move on and finish, I did want to say a lot of you are struggling because you want your leaders to think unselfishly when you think selfishly for yourself. The moment that I've never met a leader, me personally, that when they knew you had their back, they didn't say, okay, what you need. It's always their lack of trust in you, your ability, or the person or the position, or maybe past people that have been in that position. They don't know how long you're going to be there. Turnover is extremely heavy in that position.
Yes.
So if you're newer to a position or you're newer to leadership and your upline isn't listening, you also have to take into account how many leaders have been in this position in the last 6 years. Because if they've seen a lot of high turnover in that position, they know you're not going to stay long enough to see if your idea works or doesn't work. Okay. You're going to leave just like everyone else. But if they see that you have a vested interest to seeing whatever you propose sent through, they know that if they say yes to something and they follow it all the way through, that you're going to be there to have their back. There's not too many people and leaders that I've personally met that have not been willing to go through a brick wall for you if they feel like you will do the same thing for them. And it has to be symbiotic in that. And this takes me to what our summit is going to be about this weekend. If you are interested in a free leadership summit, some of the summits that we've been doing all over the country with HSPA chapters all over the country, helping them restart their chapters, leading with the summits and creating those leadership symposiums. We're having a virtual one live, and it's free, and it's going to be 4 hours. Imagine amazing training for 4 hours right from your home. You can be in your pajamas getting better. It's going to be a great chance for you to do great things. And not only that, we're teaching you how to lead without limits. It's called Leading Without Limits. So if you go to sipshealthcare.com/class, sipshealthcare.com/class, you can register for free for our leadership summit that is coming up this weekend. And it's entitled Leading Without Limits. And what today, SGG, she gave some of the best blueprints on how to lead without limits. If you feel like they're not listening directly, there's a reason why they're not listening. Maybe they can't comprehend you. Maybe it's not 2 and 2 is not making 4 for them. Maybe they're seeing a cart washer as something that's, we know you need it, but We don't think you need it. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to create ways to get them to see your point of view in ways that they can handle it. And another thing you have to take into account is people's communication styles. A lot of people have trauma dealing with people that are loud. A lot of people have trauma dealing with people who have microaggressions. A lot of people have trauma dealing with people who are passive aggressive. A lot of people have trauma with people who are extremely intelligent because they were made fun of their entire life by extremely intelligent people. So also that awareness piece that she talked about, a lot of it has to do with you becoming aware of who you're talking to and learning how to use your language to fit what their ears are used to listening to, which
Mm-hmm.
does cater to you to have to become multilingual in not just languages, but how people receive what you're saying. And the better leader you become, the better you understand that you have to learn how to speak in a multitude of different dialects, even though you're still speaking Spanish. I mean,
Mm-hmm.
English. So you can still speak English and speak different dialects of English. You
Yes.
just have to learn the cadence of who you're talking to in order to truly get the response that you're looking for from that person. So before we end this SGG, you know we do it talking to that one person. If you were to talk to that one person about leading without limits, what is one thing that you will give that person, or two things that you will give someone who is trying to learn how to lead without limits?
Uh, if you're trying to learn to lead without limits, the first thing I think you have to do is to understand what your leadership style is. You have to know that. It says that somewhere we learn, know thyself. What is your leadership style? Are you truly a leader? I think we have lots of people um, that are leading that are not leaders. Now, what I have learned over time is that you can be taught to lead, but you have to first know thyself. I think that's very important. And as you lead, number two, are the things that you're doing as a leader not only meeting the need for the corporation or the company, but if you were the follower, how would you feel about the way that you're leading? So I'm the leader, and I got my own process going. As a follower of that leader, how do I feel? How do you make me feel every day? Because see, human beings are like that. It's all in how you make them feel. If you make them feel that you care, if you make them feel that they are worthy, if you make them feel that they mean something, they will support you. And as they support you, as you feel the same way about whoever's leading you, this goes up the line. In great places, I believe, that have great leadership, this is what happens. But it's all in how, number two, you make people feel. I worked at an institution where the mission statement said, we came to take care of you spiritually, mentally, and physically. And we used to say that has to correlate, not just with, that has to consist of not just the patient, but the workers. And we felt that as leaders, they needed to understand how we felt, how they made us feel as the people who were actually in the trenches doing the work. And this particular institution understood their assignment. And as a leader, you have to understand your assignment. And your assignment, sometimes we get it twisted. Yes, I want to be sure trays are processed according to parameters, that the parameters are met. But at the end of the day, I want to be sure that all of the people that followed me, the leader on this walk, were happy on this walk, were content on this walk, felt worthy on this walk, so that they'll come back and follow me again tomorrow on the next walk. So that's what I feel. Thank you all. Have a great week.
And for me, what I would say to those learning how to lead without limits is learning how to follow without limits first. You can't lead anyone in any place or any environment that you have not followed someone in. And what I learned about following is that although somebody may be flawed in their ability to lead in certain aspects, one of my best mentors ever was an extremely flawed leader that led with his heart, with his passion, and with his belief in God. And although when I was younger and naive, I was someone who was more I was more brash in my approach as it pertained to what I felt like I needed and what I felt like I wanted as of someone following a leader. But we have to think about some of the greatest leaders in history, whether it was business, sports, or social movements. They all started by learning, observing, and executing someone else's vision before stepping into their own. Following well means understanding structure, discipline. How can you be disciplined to follow someone instruction? Regardless of, as long as it's integral, as long as it's right, following someone doesn't mean that you're that you know not as good of a leader. Following someone just simply means you know how and when is your turn to step up and show out. And when is your turn to help someone else step up and show out? Because as a leader, you're always in the middle of developing people, following, guiding people, curating them to become the best version that they can be. So, what's the best way that you can learn how to lead? When I'm following, you're in the best position to help curate someone to become the best that they can be by you becoming the plugs that they need for the areas that they struggle most. True leadership isn't about skipping steps. Those who try to lead without first learning to follow often lack the empathy and understanding needed to inspire a team. But those who have been in the trenches, who know what it means to take direction and execute with excellence, are the ones who build loyal teams creating to last. So when you look at some of the top 10 most greatest leaders, Nelson Mandela, he was a disciple member of the African National Congress, the ANC, learning from mentors and working under senior activists before becoming a leader himself. Steve Jobs, he learned under the Atari founder, Nolan Bushnell, and was deeply influenced by Steve Wozniak's technical brilliance before co-founding what we know as Apple today. Oprah Winfrey, she started off as a news anchor and talk show host, learning from the industry under media executives before building an empire herself. Martin Luther King followed the teachings of Mahatma Gandhi, who we already talked about, who followed other people and studied civil rights under leaders like Bayard Rustin. And then he became the face of the American civil rights movement. Warren Buffett studied under Benjamin Graham. You got Barack Obama. He was a community organizer, learned under a plethora of senior political figures in Chicago. Kobe Bryant learned under Michael Jordan, Phil Jackson. Elon Musk learned from his tech pioneered from his friend Peter Thiel, who helped him build PayPal, who helped him become who he wants to. Y'all, I can go on and on about all types of people. Jeff Bezos worked under financial executives at a hedge fund called D.E. Shaw. So when he started Amazon, he didn't start Amazon as someone who already was Jeff Bezos. He started Amazon from someone who literally studied from some of the greatest financial minds on planet Earth at the time. So it is even some of the worst ones. So if I'm following someone, I want to be the best follower there is, and I want to be the best leader under that while I'm following. Dr. Jake, what exactly do you mean? I'm bringing it home with this. If you can't make your leader look great while you're following them, you will never make your team look great while they're following you. It's impossible. But if I could bite my pride to make someone else look great, what you're going to realize is that as a leader, a true leader, you bite your pride to shine light on your team, even if they're underperforming. So while I'm following, I have to learn how to lead by leading while I'm following. It's a symbiotic relationship that you must master. So if you want to learn how to lead without limits, go to sipshealthcare.com/class. Sign up. It is for free. I don't know how long we're going to keep doing these free leadership summits. As long as you keep showing up, we'll keep providing we'll keep providing these summits until we can't do it anymore. So sipshealthcare.com/class, and understand that leading without limits also means mastering the art of following without limits, because this is a symbiotic relationship to do both. You want to be a great leader, you have to first be a great follower. That's the math. This is SPD 911. You can listen to this episode playback on our Bread to Lead podcast on Apple Music. If you go to Apple Podcasts, look up Bread to Lead podcast, you're going to see this video. In all of our live videos, after a certain amount of time, our media team, Ignacio, he takes the video down and he's putting it inside of our SPD 911 community. So go to SPD911.com, join our Executive Edge free community to get access to these live shows that we do in playback if you want to watch the video. Other than that, we love you, and there is absolutely nothing you can do about it. Peace. We'll see you next week.